to David's Walk into a Bar is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
If your cassette is beta format, it should look like this, with a red leading edge bearing the RCA Columbia Pictures logo and the logo printed in red on the reel spring visible through the window. If this video cassette is not like this, then we'd like to hear about it.
High five for death and alive. Knocking the plastic like a man from a casket. High five for death and alive. Knocking the plastic like a man from a casket.
You know what I did? I mean, like, purists would kill me. You'd probably strangle me over Skype. I would buy like a 6-hour tape, and I would put 3 movies on it at EP.
No, no.
That's what I did.
Damn
I still
you.
have. I still have a few. I have.
Well, see, that's the problem with those tapes is like later on, because tapes will sort of warp and get weird, and so you'll have more tracking issues as the tape
just
ages.
a side note.
Yeah.
Just a side note. Question for you.
Yeah.
What brand do you remember mainly buying for blanks?
Okay, you know what? Scotch.
Scotch. Okay. I think I had a couple of Scotch. Is that the good ones with the plastic case?
Well,
that you would slip it in, or was it just the paper
no?
case?
Well, no. Yeah, they had a plastic case. Yeah, kind of like they would be the same shape as the paper cases that you would get, but they would be plastic. But they stopped doing that. I'd say like late '80s.
When I started caring about the quality of blanks, I would try to pick up professional standard tapes.
Whoa, those are expensive.
Yeah, I did. I grabbed them. I still have like Sony. I got like a super high grade Maxell one time. This was like in Maxell was good.
1985,
I remember buying
but it was like their super high grade, and it actually came in a I guess you call it a clamshell. Like it came in like a plastic container, and you opened it up, and it was very sturdy. But when I watched the tape, I compared it to my Scotch. I'm like, the Scotch looks just as good. I can't. There's no reason to buy this super expensive $20 videotape when I can get this Scotch tape for even at the time it was only like $4. And it's like, you know what?
Well, you would get them. We would get them in 3-packs. They would come in 3-packs.
Yeah, videotape didn't start to get cheap until like the late '80s. So when you get a tape, it's like I always like Scotch. Now Scotch stopped making videotape. Like I think it had to do with like a decision at 3 because we were made by 3M. And I think they were just diversifying or doing something else, and they said, "No, we're going to get out of the tape business."
Didn't they start the tape business? though? They started the tape business. Right?
Them
they
and
started
Ampex.
magnetic tape. Yeah.
Yeah, them and Ampex and like.
Well, I can tell you the one company that I never had issue with that always produced consistent, good quality blank tape for me was Fujifilm.
Fuji was good. Fuji was good.
I still have like boxes of Fuji tapes.
Yeah, I mean everybody claimed they had like the best tape, but honestly, if you got maybe
plus I like their labels, very nice labels.
Just get all you had to do was get a name brand like a Fuji, a TDK, a Maxell, a Scotch. You were good. Just don't beat the tapes to death. Treat them well.
But then when I started screwing around with video cameras, and I got my first I think VHS camcorder. I think it was what was it? Panasonic. I think it might have been full size VHS camcorder. One of these big mothers that hurt your shoulder. I would buy broadcast standard tape, and I would buy broadcast standard Sony mainly, Maxell a lot of it too. Good quality. You can definitely see the difference.
Man, I didn't have the money. I just got whatever I could.
They were pricey. They were about $20 a pop.
Oh, ouch!
And sometimes they would come in different times. You could get a 60-minute, or you could start with a 45-minute if you wanted to get a 60-minute.
The real problem was it was hard to tell the difference between a good tape. As long as they didn't have bad dropouts, they were pretty much as good as your VCR that you had.
Oh yeah, they were pretty. Yeah, I had a professional at the time that I was messing around with making my own movies. I had a professional JVC editing VHS VCR.
Ooh.
And that was a lovely one, but it also broke down. It broke down on me. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably because I overused it or something. I don't know.
Could be.
I couldn't tell. But it had it was like 4-head, and it would stop on a dime. That's another thing that I wanted to mention about my RCA, my little RCA, the first VCR we ever had. When you paused it paused on a dime, and it didn't do anything. Okay, now the Gold Star, the Gold Star VCR that we had, that we used as our quote-unquote dubbing VCR, when you hit pause on that, it would wind it back 10 seconds. You couldn't do any precise editing on that. That's the mark of cheapness. Now, RCA, when they made products, when they made electronics back then, they were high quality.
You've become like the guy in Gremlins pounding on the TV. Told you we should have bought a Zenith. Jink.
Yeah, yeah. And
Jink.
also, I mean, looking at the specs, I saw the spec. I could get everything but a picture of this damn thing, which pisses me off. But the specs, it was a Hitachi body or a Hitachi.
It was Hitachi guts. Yeah.
Yeah, Hitachi guts. They basically, but very well put together. In this, it was fantastic. It was just fantastic. Sorry, I just knocked the mic.
Although we were talking about Scotch, Scotch was, this kind of goes back to Universal. They were one of the first companies, although it would happen earlier with another company when they released Ghostbusters on, and we'll get to that on RCA Columbia.
RCA Columbia.
They released Back to the Future in 1986. It was like this big hype, and it was like on Scotch. It was like ESX hi-fi tape. And this was another thing with tape where it's like they'd say it was hi-fi tape. Hi-fi had nothing to do with tape. Maybe it was a high-grade quality tape, but to say that like you need a hi-fi tape to record hi-fi on your stereo VCR, you didn't. You just needed a good solid tape with low dropouts, and you were fine.
I would say I would like to put Ghostbusters up there as one of the best videotapes, actually.
Yeah, that was released on TDK, and they like
right up there with Star Trek 3 and Jaws. Fantastic transfer.
Well, these were big deal releases. And the funny
Jaws, most certainly, yes. Jaws, though, I think that someone said, because when Jaws came out, was, we were still a couple of years down from full release of movies on video, but someone was thinking, because the Jaws transfer very, like I said, almost like it was like that print was just made to be transferred to video. Same. A couple years later, a few years later, with Star Trek 3 and Ghostbusters, both released in 1984, they were doing this. They were now fully into this whole video transfer thing.
Back to the Future was like probably one of the last massive big movies to be released, but it was released at a like video store price, I think of like $80.
Yes, and it broke my heart. We tried to dub it and we couldn't
because it had macrovision on it. It was
because it had that horrible thing that happens. Everybody gets red. It goes really low,
it's weird,
darkens, and then it gets bright again.
Yeah.
And even then, we had a friend who had a copy guard eliminator thingy. Ran it through. It didn't. I mean, it got rid of the that annoying distortion that occurred, but it looked too bright.
Yeah.
So what it does is just you turn it on and it brightens the image. It just brightens it to the point that CopyGuard can't do anything.
Of course, a lot of people are stupid. They didn't care. It looks a little wobbly, but I can deal with that. I mean, or you could have been smart and bought it on Laserdisc. Okay, it would have been only $35. It fit on one disc. You could record, and then you could record that on tape.
Yeah.
They couldn't fit any sort of like it had to do with the amount of space on the disc. They could never put any sort of copy protection on those discs ever. So Laserdisc, you can always take a Laserdisc and record it onto videotape, or if you have a DVD recorder, you can take a Laserdisc and record it onto a DVD recorder if you need to.
If you had like a bottomless pit in your bank account.
Well, DVD recorders.
I
mean, you get like a DVD. You can get. I mean, in the late days of DVD, you could get a DVD recorder for about $170, and it worked like a VCR. And you put like a re-recordable DVD in there, and you'd use it, and you could record either TV, or you could record, movies. But you couldn't necessarily record another DVD, because if you did, the DVD had copy protection on it, and if with a DVD recorder, if it sensed any sort of copy protection, it wouldn't even like record a wobbly picture. It'll just shut down.
It's all that computer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get into the nasty, which was the year 1984. Supreme Court, United States. Case number 464 US 417. Sony Corporation of America versus Universal City Studios.
And Disney?
And, it's, I guess, et al. Disney was included in the... Disney and Universal came together and said, hey, they can record our movies, and we don't like that.
Yeah,
so,
it's like, but it's so funny because they're
In
releasing,
an era of bad luck for Sony, they had to deal with this.
they're releasing movies on something that they're saying this should be illegal, but here we're gonna sell you things on this thing that we think that's illegal. It's like it should be illegal to have something like this, but here we're gonna make money off of it anyway.
Here's the dirt. It
Okay.
says here that they allege that defendant appellants Sony Corporation and Sony Corporation of America were contributorily liable for infringing their copyrights by manufacturing and selling Betamax home videotape recorders to home viewers for the allegedly infringing purpose of recording plaintiffs' broadcasts. Before we get into the solution and what actually happened, why? Okay, number one, why Sony? Number two, why Betamax? Why are
Because
they
they
listed and
invented-
not VHS?
I think it's because they invented basically the concept of the home
So
video
because
recorder.
they came up with the idea, they have to suffer for it.
Yes.
Never mind Victor or JVC in America
Yeah, doesn't matter.
being the developers of that. And what's more, Sony was a lot more guarded about their property and their patents, their trademarks, and their inventions. And this is one of the reasons why Betamax failed, because Sony did not, you would have to pay through the nose to acquire the license to manufacture beta videotape recorders. Whereas JVC was like, hey, yeah, give it to the, and JVC wound up making tons of money over this by putting VHS out there, by seriously putting it out there. So it became bigger. I mean, yeah, there were I guess I don't really know. I never had a Betamax in my house, but people insist, I think even you did, and I think even Bronwyn did, because you guys did have them, that beta was better quality. So it was better quality than VHS. VHS not as good, but VHS more durable apparently. Less problem. Every time I see a Betamax video on YouTube, somebody's like, "Hey, I got this brand new old stock beta machine, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't play other kinds of beta tapes. It only plays." There was the earliest Betamax machines only played back what it itself recorded. So
Yeah.
it was like a weird thing. I don't understand it myself. If you're gonna unleash a product on people, you got to make it versatile. You got to make it work for
Well,
everything.
I think it's
work for
part of
every
it is
application.
there were less companies. There was less of an evolution with beta because there just weren't as many companies. They weren't always constantly refining it. I mean, VHS, okay, they basically gave up on beta within, we'll say about 10 years, maybe a little more, okay? But VHS had another 10, 15 years of refinement and it was this weird thing where VHS got really refined and they knew what they were doing, and then they started like trying to, okay, we've got
Like
it
right
refined.
from the get-go, they had the standard in place.
They got it refined. Okay, now let's see how cheap we can make it and get it out there. And then the quality started to crap out. Like your mid 90s VHS machines are probably a lot more durable than your, say, early 2000s machines.
You know what was interesting though? I remembered this when we bought the first VCR, 1985, right? The price of beta was coming down because they were losing money.
Yeah.
So they really wanted to kind of take over, and VHS was slightly more expensive than beta at the time, right? My mother was like, I think talking to the salesman, she's like, what should we go for, VHS or beta? And the salesman like looking around, making sure nobody's looking at him, and he goes, get VHS. And it's like, why? Well, just get VHS.
Yeah.
Beta's on its way out. It was like that.
Well, you also had to be like, okay, what video stores are in my area? That was pretty much the only. That was pretty much the only determining factor. In that.
And what was going to give you more?
What do
of
your
a
friends
catalog?
have? Like if you're in a highly populated beta area like I lived in, it wasn't necessarily that big of a deal. Because
Okay, I don't advocate. I'm not going to advocate this, but can I ask you?
Yes.
Can you connect? Can you rent a beta video cassette?
Yeah.
Connect it, put it in your beta machine, and then connect your wires to a VHS recorder and record off of that. Can you do that?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay, all right.
It's
I was just curious because I was wondering because there might
so
be
you're basically
weird
saying
anomalies.
Can you make a beta to VHS copy? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Of course, because it's gonna output if you just like dubbing from one VHS to another. It has the outputs, it has the audio video out. Like you play the tape. Say you're gonna record beta to VHS, you would put the beta tape in. You would hit play. It would output an audio and video signal through the audio video out. and then it would go into a VHS machine and it could record it. It sends.
Well,
it-
I had always wondered because
it records
the beta
and-
signal is different than the VHS
Well, on
signal.
the
and would you have
the
this,
way that it
would
records?
you-
I mean, it's just the same as, well, hey, a DVD is recorded a different way.
Well, could
then
you get a decent second generation dub of that? Or would it?
Yeah,
just
you
look
would get
like
actually that was the thing where beta was like you could make dubs and they weren't as bad. It was just had to do with the way that the colors were recorded on VHS was a little different.
crap?
But as far as like, I mean, hey, people take a VHS and then they convert it to digital. You know.
Yeah,
It's-
but the thing is, okay, this is the truth hurts.
Yeah.
This, they're right. They're right because what happened was people stopped renting so much because they were renting videotapes, dubbing them, and then just returning them, with big, wide, innocent eyes. I don't think I'll be renting this title anymore, and that takes money out of their pocket in a way.
Well, with most
You know.
movies, you.
I mean, that's what I did. I rented The Exorcist and I taped it.
Yeah.
And I have it on my shelf with a nice little typewritten label on the tape.
And you're still
it looks
watching it?
great.
You're still watching that bootleg tape that you made like 30 years ago?
I don't know. I think we might have lost it in the interim. It might still be in a storage container somewhere. But it was The Exorcist on a Warner clamshell, so it didn't have the.
Well, see,
it didn't have
maybe
Macrovision.
it's just because I'm older, and maybe it's because I have an understanding of how the world works or how the world should work.
work.
That is stealing. When
That
you
is
really-
stealing.
It is
absolutely.
stealing. People make something like this is how America works. You make something, you sell it, and people buy it. And when you do that, it takes an extra. And like it's people that pirate movies on the internet now. That is,
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about legalities, but it is morally wrong to do that
Absolutely.
because
I agree. I'm a
that is-
filmmaker. I don't want anyone doing
Yeah.
that with my movie, Legia.
that's how you make money is you have a product and you sell it. If someone's recording it and then like that's not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, but you justify it. You
Yeah.
justify it to your friends with a conscience or David Anderson over here, and you say, "Oh, they're not gonna sweat over a couple of bucks. Come on."
Yeah, but if everybody
$multi-billion-dollar corporation,
everybody does it, then and then what happens?
they're rich. We should be taking stuff from them. Socialism.
Well, I know, but then they pass that cost onto other people, and that's why it costs $18 to go see a damn movie.
Yeah, there's also that movies just suck. But hey,
We suck, yeah. But I mean,
no, okay. So, well, the issue was whether unauthorized home videotaping of television broadcasts for non-commercial
yeah.
time shifting purposes
Well, I would see
could be defined as fair use.
I would think that the precedent had already been set with audio cassettes.
There is that. There's a very also the uncomfortable sticky territory between radio stations. Radio stations would take an album that just came out and play the whole thing
Well,
without interruption.
they
And all
had-
you had to do instead of going to the record store and plopping down your $10 for the album was stay home, tape it, and you've got a copy. Of
Wasn't the solution to that they put a royalty on every blank tape, and then that was supposed to offset?
Yeah, and that was I think that was the ultimate outcome of this lawsuit, because the court ruled that non-commercial home recording of television broadcasts for the purpose of time shifting was fair use. If you're doing it for yourself and you're not charging anybody, this seems to be the big issue. Am I going to tape something for you? Like, say the Thornbirds three night miniseries was on, and you wanted a copy on VHS or beta, and I had the only beta machine in town. Dave, I'll give you $5. Can you give me a copy of that? That's illegal. I can't take money from you, but I can give it to you.
Yeah.
It's sort of like prostitution.
Well, hell, I mean, it'd even be like
Prostitution is illegal because you're paying someone to have sex with you.
if I buy something legally, like say I buy a James Bond movie on Blu-ray, I have the box set. Okay, I enjoy it, I use it, I'm using it completely legally. But what if I want to set up in my neighborhood like a James Bond marathon in the park? I can do it for free. But if I start charging people at the gate, I guess if you have it outside,
Well,
I don't know if you do that. If I start charging people to watch it outside, I'm breaking the law.
That's sticky territory, because there is something called public exhibition on that disclaimer that you always see on the bottom of your Blu-rays or your audio tapes or your
Really?
videotapes. Not for use. Lending public exhibition is strictly prohibited. It would actually say that. I think you would have. I don't know what.
So you're saying I would get in trouble even if I wasn't charging?
I don't know. The language it's not particularly vague. If it says public exhibition or something, that might be illegal.
Okay.
I don't know. You know, I mean, like, you can contact UA. Whoever picks up the phone over there would be interested to hear. I'm sorry, you're running a James Bond Film Festival for the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have to shoot us a check for 37 cents.
Yeah.
But I'm not making any money.
I would pay for it. I'd be like, you know what? You're right. Because, again, it comes down to you have a product, you sell it, you sell it the way you want to sell it. I can either buy it or not buy it. But
right, but
you're not giving it away for free. That's not how it should work.
The court came to the conclusion that, given the nature of televised works, they keep going with televised works, but we know damn well what they're talking about. In their entirety, free of charge, reproduction of the entire work does not have its ordinary effect on militating, whatever that means, against a finding of fair use. So they held that plaintiffs failed to demonstrate any likelihood of more than minimal harm to the potential market or the value of their copyrighted work. So fair use was the outcome. This is why we have fair use now. This is why we put this series out. We're putting this series out on YouTube, Dailymotion, and Vimeo. I'm not charging a dime for it. If I'm not making any money, they can't put me in jail.
No.
If I try to make money, if I'm using copyrighted work in here, then yeah, the federal agents will come bursting in. They'll take my cats away from me.
Well, what it comes down to is if they make a claim. Now, a lot of times companies will not make a claim because they realize, okay, they're using our material, but in a way it promotes us. Like this particular episode, we're promoting Universal.
We're promoting
every time
Universal.
we say Universal.
We promoted Paramount the week before and Fox the week before.
Right now, we're talking about...
It's education. You know, I consider education different. You know, I believe in edutainment. I like to educate and entertain, if possible.
Now, it's an NBC Universal Comcast company, fine quality organization. Please don't sue us. But, you know, every time we mention, that subliminally goes out into the ether and somebody watches it like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to watch a fine quality MCA Universal Comcast.
And I'm not going to duplicate it for my friends and sell it to them.
No. Most people don't. I mean, the way it's set up now, okay, I got a receiver now, and it has special, it doesn't just pass 4K, it has special inputs, special HDMI inputs that are called they're called HDCP, High Definition Content Protocol, or copyright protection, I think. High Definition Copyright Protection. It's the only way that you can watch a 4K Blu-ray, because in order to make sure that they don't get copied, they have super amounts of copy protection on them, and they will only go through certain inputs and outputs. So
yeah, but okay, copying to what though? What are we doing?
Computers.
With this? Are we taking
computers?
We have a Blu-ray drive on our computer. We pop the Blu-ray in and we try to rip it, right?
Yeah.
And it won't let us rip it.
It won't let you rip it. It has too much protection on it. And it's like, it's the only way that you can watch it and have it pass through your receiver is to have that. Now, if I take that and I try and run it through another HDMI input, it'll probably say does not recognize or something like that. Or
now I have I have a VCR in my bedroom and a Blu-ray player with a RCA phono out. Now I run the Blu-ray player into the VCR and record something off of it. Do you think it'll work? Do you think?
Okay, here's how that would work. Okay, what I'm talking about is for 4K, so that doesn't necessarily apply to this because it's just Blu-ray.
This is just a Sony, just a regular old Sony Blu-ray.
But it has the old. Okay, if your RCA VCR is capable of, if it's not fussy with Macrovision copy protection, then it should be able to record it. If it can't, it'll record it wobbly.
If I try, I could.
If you could try, I mean,
I'm very curious to see.
The
it'll probably look like crap.
The way that they make them is, they will the video output will output a Macrovision encoded signal, like the disc is encoded with Macrovision just in case, so that when if it's output to like an old style thing, it will output a Macrovision thing on it, and then you will record a Macrovision on it. So I
would think that the Blu-ray player would actually stand up on its legs and laugh at me.
No.
Because it would be like, you're trying to record me onto a video cassette?
No. I've tried that. I've tried to do that, and it just makes a wobbly picture.
Really? I mean, really? They're I mean, okay.
Unless you get some sort of, like, your friend that, like, if I've heard that if you get like a little copy protection sort of box It
We're not encouraging this, folks.
No, it might strip away enough of it. It might be able to record. But why would you want to?
I don't know.
it would be just to test.
Well,
it.
like I said they were right. They were actually right. This, you rent one movie that would ordinarily cost you $80 to buy, and then you dub it, and that's it. I mean, you're not going to spend anywhere. You spent about the cost of a blank tape, and you got a nice copy. And I did this for years. There were a lot of companies that didn't have the Macrovision for a while, and then there's probably some that's never did. Let me see. Who am I thinking of? Maybe some of the smaller companies. I know Vestron didn't really have Macrovision or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
it really
I had hundreds. I had hundreds of movies. I probably still do. And then the advent of when we got the cable, I was just taping them off of cable television, which is the same. I mean, that's the same kind of a thing. And what's more, you would actually get superior quality from a cable feed than you would.
I remember when I had a satellite dish and I was picking up the really solid satellite feed, analog satellite feed. And I'd record that on VHS. That'd be the best because it was a pure signal.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, I told you about this story about a friend of ours who had cable in I think she lived in Northeast Philly. She taped Empire Strikes Back off of HBO for me and put it on SP, I think. It was like an SP or LP. No, actually, I think it was LP.
It might have probably, I think it's just over 2 hours and it probably just wouldn't have fit. That'd be my guess.
Yeah. So, yeah, she probably did tape it on LP. That tape was superior to the actual Fox, CBS Fox video. It had incredible sound and an incredible picture. And that's why I was wondering, I asked you before, is it possible that the cable signal, if you're recording, you're going to get a better quality copy of a movie?
It depends on your cable. It depends on your cable.
I guess it was really, she had like awesome cable or something because it was just fantastic.
I had horrible cable, but
I don't know if I still have that tape, but it was comparable. I'm going to say this is going to kill. It's going to make people's heads explode. The quality was comparable to the Blu-ray that I have of it.
Oh, no.
I'm talking about a 4:3 CRT. Okay, looking at it on that, it was beautiful. It was comparable to a Blu-ray on my big screen TV now. That's how clean it was. It was so clean.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that, okay, I have various different versions of the Star Wars movies on both Laserdisc and I do not have them on Blu-ray. I have them on DVD. There was
I remember. Okay, before I forget, I do remember that the Laserdiscs of those Star Wars movies were probably the best quality you could get at the time.
Well, see,
they were probably better than
that's
that
the problem. Is that okay? This goes back to what we were saying about watching it on CRT. When Star Wars came out, they came out with first they came out with a pan and scan, and it was actually time compressed to get it on one disc, and they did that with Empire Strikes Back too.
But did they slightly speed it up or something?
Yeah, just enough, just enough that I could tell because I'm persnickety. But I didn't get those. I got the first widescreen releases at $70 a pop, and
the big ones with the big many
ones.
discs.
They got 4 discs. No, but then there's another version. Then there's the cleaned up THX in CAV format, half hour per side, but you could do frame by frame.
Yeah.
Those are much THX'd and everything, but they also
bitch. That's a bitch in a one-sided Laserdisc player.
I have a flipper, so
I only have the one-sided.
But the problem with those is so you watch on a CRT, it looks good, but they use some sort of digital noise reduction on them. And so if anything moves a little too quick, it looks a little wobbly because they can't handle fast motion at the time. This was the early digital cleanup. So you watch on a CRT, it looks nice and clear and clean. But you blow that up on my plasma TV 51 inches, you can really see the wobbly. So while it's a really good transfer, if anything moves, you're screwed. So I always prefer to watch the slightly grainier, slightly noisier, older widescreen one to the THX'd version. Just because the picture looks wobbly if you blow it up. But we should be talking about Universal, so.
yeah, we should be. Well, you know what I figured I'm going to do? This is such a great conversation, I might just release it separately.
High five for death.